So first, guys, I just want to say thank you so much. Ken Cinema Sofa has reached 1,000 subscribers. It's all because of you. Look, I can't wait. Look, drop in the comments in the community section what you're expecting to see from this channel from now on, right? Let me know and I will reach out to you. You guys helped me get here. Thank you so much. Look, this is my Superman review, not in-depth review. I'm gonna do something like that later on, maybe next week. You know, I went to see it recently, just a couple days ago, and I just wanted to give my first impressions. You know, it's really important that I do this because in all of my exuberant joy I showed in my trailer reactions for this movie, there were people, Snyderbots, I guess they're being called these days, that went into the comments and were just like, you're gonna be sorry. It's gonna bomb. It's gonna be terrible. You're gonna be sorry. I was like, all right, okay. So they made me promise that I would give a review. I would tell you guys what I thought about it, whether I liked it or whether I didn't. I promised to do that because I like to be fair, right? I'm a mature guy, mature man, 45 years old. That should mean something in this day and age, but. So, did I like it? I didn't like the movie. I loved Superman. Oh man. I love that movie. I love that movie. I can't wait to go back. In fact, I'm going back to see it in IMAX with some of my art students here. You know, I've talked them into going to see it. One of my students finally just saw the 1978 Chris Reeve film with her boyfriend. So I was like, okay, let's go see it. Let's go see Superman this coming weekend. And she's like, oh, my boyfriend, I'm supposed to go see it with him, but I'm gonna go see it with you guys first, me and the other students. I was like, no. Go see it with your boyfriend. This means a lot to him, okay? See, I'm the best wingman he's never even met. Yeah, it's exciting, you know? Here in Japan, people don't know so much about Superman. Like even one of my students, moms from like a week ago, she's like, Uchujin? He's an alien? I was like, yeah, Superman's an alien. How do you think he's so strong? She's like, oh, he goes into a phone booth and puts on the super suit. And I was like, oh, no. Oh. Back to the movie. I love this movie. I will admit, it took me a little time to get into it in the beginning because I was just not used to this format, this style that James Gunn is using, which I feel is the genius of it, is that he has made the film as if you have gone into a comic shop, picked up a random issue of Superman, opened it up, and boom, you're dropped in, right? That's how I feel he did it. And I feel like this is the modern day James Gunn version of what the original 1978 film was trying to do when it opened up with the, you know, the movie curtains, right? Ooh, beautiful. And the kid reading the 1938 Action Comics, right? Ah, lovely. So I know modern audiences, there are a lot of people that wouldn't have been down for sitting that long in their seat. They would have been squirming if James Gunn decided to redo that opening scene. So I think this was his version of it. But what I liked about it is that even though it had those few words in the beginning, right, telling you the backstory of Superman, which actually grew on me. I liked that. I liked the way they did that with the numbers, right? The number 3, right? But to me, it was really reminiscent of how when you pick up a comic book, especially for the most popular heroes, right? No matter what story arc they're in, they could be battling, you know, their most dangerous villain, right? Superman could be battling Bizarro on the moon. You'll be right in smack dab in the middle of it from page 1, but they'll always have at the top a little synopsis about him, right? At the very top, right? Desperate couple, last hope, doomed planet, you know, like, and I feel that that's what Gunn was doing in that scene. I can't say for sure if that's what he meant, but that's what I felt, having read so many comics. X-Men, Superman, Spider-Man. Page 1, they always have at the top an intro to the character in their backstory in like 3 sentences or 4, right? I like that. I like that attention to detail. It felt like a comic book. It really did. And let me tell you, the Silver Age vibes are all over this. I love that as well. I'm a big look. If you haven't watched my other reactions, one one thing you need to know is I am a big fan of Silver Age. A big fan. I love it. I love All-Star Superman. That was a big influence to this film. It was unashamedly Silver Age. And there's no better way to illustrate that than a big super dog flying in the first 2 minutes of the film, right? I mean, wow, coming right at you like a bulldozer through the snow. Obviously, I had seen the trailer already. I knew who it was. It was still special, magical to see it on screen. Oh, man. So, love the Silver Age robots, right? The Superman robots. I love that he calls them Superman robots, right? That's on purpose, guys. That's on purpose. Come on. He's trying to evoke the feel, that wonder and tall tale sci-fi feel of the Silver Age of comics, especially Superman. And look, if you didn't get that with that, right? Them, seeing the Superman robots, if you didn't get that, and them calling him Superman, right? Superman, when he comes in like, jacked up, then look, when he gets healed and he falls to the ground, healed up, 85% strong again, what does he say? He says, golly. Oh, man. When I heard that, I was like, okay, this is not a rumor or hearsay. Clearly, James Gunn is making a Silver Age Superman film. And that's when I buckled in. I was like, okay, let's go. But it was like, like I said, it took me a while to get used to it, because it went from that and then it went straight to the engineers searching for him. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't used to this style, right? I'm used to the classic 3-act structure. It still has that, but it drops you in as if there was a further act or a further 3 acts from the last issue that you missed. And I love that because that is kind of like reminiscent of the pulp comics that were the ancestors of superhero comics, right? And Indiana Jones, which he himself and his films are an homage to pulp comics and adventure serials. And adventure serials, you would go on the weekends and you would catch episode 4 or 5 out of a series of them. And maybe you missed the showing of last week's, episode. That's what Star Wars is about. So it's the same thing. Like, I really love that. And I hope that people are keying in on that. It really saddens me that especially younger generations don't get that. And maybe you do get it and it's just not your thing. That's cool too. So, after he's healed, he goes straight back into battle. I love that. Once again, the breakneck speed makes you feel like you're in a comic, like you're watching it and you just happen to stumble into this issue of the comic. Love that. That brings me to David Corenswet, awesome Superman. Look, I got to tell you, this is the first time in a long time where I felt I was watching Superman on screen. I'm not saying that the other actors after Chris Reeve have not done a good job at playing someone called Superman, someone called Clark Kent. They brought their own rendition to it and everything. I loved Man of Steel. Okay, before you Snyder guys come at me, look, I'm a Snyder guy too. I like Tyler Hoechlin. Is that how you say his name? From the TV series Superman and Lois. Dean Cain was good for his time, right? Lois and Clark back then, we had to scrap and get whatever we could. Like, loved Henry Cavill once again. But see, I just feel like these were all like modernized, updated renditions of a character that kind of was related to Superman. I mean, like intellectual property wise, you know what I mean? It's supposed to be Superman, but for another era, okay? This is the first time with Corenswet where I felt, wow, this is Supes. Like, I felt it. I really did. I mean, he was earnest. Yeah, he's tough, he's strong, but one of the things I love that All-Star Superman brings out and that David Cornsweet embodies is that, look, when you have that kind of power to punch a moon, right? Maybe into oblivion, if you are Silver Age Superman for real. You don't have to walk around like grim and with your chest out all the time. You can't. You can relax a bit, You can do that. That's what, that cover of issue 1 of All-Star Superman truly embodies that. He's just sitting on a cloud, chilling. Look, especially All-Star Superman is the return, right? Billed as the return of the Silver Age Superman. And Silver Age Superman could, blow galaxies away with a sneeze. But you know what? That just brings back the beauty of the Silver Age, that wonder and escapism that helps you just for a moment, 20 minutes, 2 hours if it's a film, escape from the mundane monotony of your life, the grittiness of the world we have around us already. I know there are some people that want Superman to be fighting terrorist cells, There are other comic characters for that. Superman, look, just is so much more than a punchy guy. It's the lore. It's the aura of the mythos of this character that just really makes his comics stand out. I love that, But back to Cornsweet. Like I said, he really channeled that Silver Age aura of Superman, right? The golly, what the hey, right? He zips in to save a squirrel, beautiful. But then also, I know some people said that he got whiny, right? With, explaining his morality and reasons for doing things. And I would argue that that's a little bit of modernization that's thrown in. But if you look at some of the old Silver Age comics, Superman would get flustered around Lois, especially, I think a lot of people that complain about how he's characterized in this movie have not actually read many of the comics, I'm thinking. Now we understand, we know that this is Silver Age Superman. I'm not talking about modern age, right? Post-crisis. There have been some changes with him, but he still retains a certain amount of that farm boy character, and that comes out most of all when he's around Lois, when he's talking with someone that he loves, right? And once again, love the background, that Kansas farm boy feel that David Cornsweet brings to the role. Love it. I'll save that for later, the issues I have with the film, okay? Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan is Lois Lane, also awesome. She doesn't quite approach the levels of iconic greatness as Margot Kidder, but she does very well, I think, for a modernized update of Lois. And I was really surprised at the transparency with how she felt about Clark. I didn't really feel like she was head over heels in love with him yet, or maybe she was initially, and now this is the stage of the relationship where, they're having thoughts, second thoughts, those kind of things, natural, right? It's been 3 years. I would like to see a film that takes place showing his first emergence, and I've heard James Gunn say something like the next Superman film, I don't know, you guys might be kind of, shocked if you're thinking of it in terms of a sequel, so I'm wondering if he's going to go back and show what it was like when he first, came out, right? And saved a plane or saved a shuttle or saved a helicopter. Depends on which iteration, right, we're talking about. So anyway, like Lois Lane, love David Cornsweet. Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult, that's my boy now, okay? That's my boy. This guy is knocking it out. I'm a big fan of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. If you haven't checked that out, look at my reaction for it on the channel. Nicholas Hoult, I love his performance, especially in that film. Kind of waifish and then kind of fights through, courage coming out in the face of darkness. Totally opposite for Lex. I mean, he is from the get-go confident, strong, a subtle, controlled, maniacal praise about him, right? And a serious mean streak. I mean, some of those shots of zooming up on his face with the tear, but with a look of rage in his eyes. I mean, wow, and let me tell you, there was a scene where I was like, oh, I can't believe they went there with him. I don't want to say what it is in case you haven't seen the film yet, but those of you who know, you know, it involves a gun. And I was like, whoa, are you serious? So yeah, and that's another thing about this film that I like. There are some people that have been talking about, especially more so before it came out, that it was too goofy or for children or whatever. But there are things that happen in this movie that turn it upside down. It's like, no, it ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a couple of scenes. That one I just talked about with Lex. And there's another one, big reveal about Superman's past, but I don't want to get into that. But I was like, what? And that brings me to Guy Gardner and the Justice Gang. Look, man, I love the way that Nathan Fillion portrayed Guy Gardner. I've been a Nathan Fillion fan since Serenity, since Firefly. I watched Serenity first. One of my friends back in high school gave me the recommendation, and I got hooked on Firefly after that. Nathan Fillion, he can play a straight guy, like straight action guy, and he can just come in with just comedic chops and play someone totally different. And yeah, that's Guy Gardner. You know, he's a bit of a joke in the comics. I mean, he's tough. He's a Green Lantern. The ring sought him out. That's true. But he's a jerk and he's a bit of a joke, you know. And the team, they tolerate him, okay? But he can bring it when it's down to put you know what I'm saying? To put down some extraterrestrial threats or extra dimensional being floating in the background. More Silver Age goodness. That's another scene that really sold it for me, that, okay, Gunn is trying to bring a comic to life, because that's the kind of thing that would happen in a comic. All the others, Wendell Pierce as Perry White, he was okay. He was okay. I love Wendell Pierce, but his Perry White was just kind of standard for me. I thought he did an amazing job in Thunderbolts. You know, he had me cracking up. His interactions with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Check it out. That was so funny. But I guess in this, yeah, he did a standard job. Maybe he didn't do as much because of the plot, didn't call for him to do as much, or maybe because he was, you know, busy working on Thunderbolts. You know, he did look a little bit heavier in this one, so there's some time between the films, okay, when they were shooting. But Jimmy Olsen was also good. I was surprised. That was a standout. This kid looks like Jimmy Olsen, you know, and I would have liked a little bit more G. Willikers type, you know, old-timey talk from him as well, right? Because he had that famous Silver Age comic called Superman's Pal, Jimmy Olsen, right? I think there's a famous cover of him like as a giant lizard. I don't know how he got that way, but that's the Silver Age for you. And he had the Superman watch. I wish they would have put that in there. That's okay. You can always go pick up All-Star Superman. It's like it starts like the Silver Age never stopped, right? It's like, yeah. Also surprised about Eve Tessmacher. That was bigger than it should have been, but that actress did very well. I don't know her name, you know, but she did pretty good. I was shocked by that. That was a nice reveal, okay? And there was actually an Otis in the film. I heard Lex Luthor call this black dude that was in charge of running his team Otis. And they made him the opposite of what Otis was in the 1978 film. This is a very competent guy. So, yeah. I was just, you know, when I was looking at him, whenever he would show up on screen, I would have that, you know, that soundtrack in my mind, you know, boom, boom, And I was like, this dude, you can't use that track for him. He's competent. Okay. Love Ma and Pa Kent. I think, what is the actress's name? Neva Howell. Man, that was bold, I think, because, speaking as a guy that has a mom that grew up, as a farm girl, Mississippi, she speaks like standard normal English, right? Like accent wise, but when she gets around her sisters or her brothers, it comes out, the twang comes out. And I can call forth the power of the twang myself, having grown up around her. Okay. Yeah, James Gunn, I was surprised that he got that actress to speak that way. I've never heard a Ma Kent sound that way before, right? She's like, hey Clark, saw what you did, boy, that was awesome. And I was like, oh man, that is straight up just some like down on the farm type lingo. I love that. And I'm surprised that he did that, because so many people equate something like that with less intelligence or whatever, or they can just be really snooty about that. But the reality is, especially I know as a missionary language teacher, traveling and exploring different areas of the world, just people speak even English just different depending on where they're from, what region they're from. It has nothing to do with their intelligence. So I like that I love that. To me, it was just very charming, and they're very salt of the earth type folks. And Pa Kent, I was really happy to see Pa Kent in there, because contrary to popular belief, Pa Kent lived in the comics. Okay. I know a lot of us are, we have a love-hate relationship with the trauma we got from seeing Pa Kent die that way he did in Chris Reeves' film, right? That was so iconic, sadly, I'm not gonna bring up Kevin Costner. But in the comics, especially Silver Age, Pa Kent is around. He's a big part. Look, when Superman is in need of some wisdoms, right? He can fly home and talk with Pa. There are some famous comic panels of them sharing a beer, leaning on the fence and just looking out at the farm and talking. Like that's just. So I'm glad that Gunn chose to leave that in, right? That aspect. I want to circle back around to the Justice Gang. That name. Mr. Terrific was terrific. And I was worried about that, because I didn't know if they were going to lean in too hard with the blaxploitation look, because that's the way he seemed when I just looked at the trailers, and especially, you brought that dog, man. And I was like, I do have uncles that talk like that, and I may have said that before in the past, growing up Southside Chicago, Inglewood. But I was pleasantly surprised that in the film, yeah, he does have an element of that blaxploitation, but it's a very subtle undercurrent. It's not overplayed, right? And even with that, there's a case to be made for that, because this is Silver Age, and Silver Age stopped in the early 70s, and that's what many African Americans would have been like in comics at that time, But I like that Gunn subverts all of that with having this dude be not only the coolest, but the most intelligent guy in the room. And one of my other students here, Papa, went to go see it, and he was like, I liked that movie Superman. I thought he was a great Superman actor, but I think the black guy, Mr. Terrific, he was the most powerful. I was thinking, I couldn't argue with him, but yeah, so that was good. Isabella Mercad, is that her name? Mercad? Her Hawk Girl was good. I thought that it was a little bit standard. Okay, I don't know much about Hawk Girl, so I thought that she was some kind of reincarnation of a Egyptian goddess or something. So to see her with like legs kicked up doing her nails, I was just like, it was funny. I liked it. I like her portrayal, that actress's portrayal of the character. But I guess I was expecting a little bit more. Maybe later we'll get more. And it's not like she's not a versatile actress, because I didn't even know that's the same girl from Alien Romulus, That's like, had that thing growing in her. Check it out. My reaction to that is on the channel as well. Now, a few things that I did not like, or that I felt was first, I liked David Corenswet's Superman. I did. His Clark Kent was good, but I felt like he could have leaned a little bit more into the facade of Clark Kent. You know, I was really expecting the Chris Reeve version more. He was kind of bumbling, and he did have the mushroom cut. I know people were just going crazy over that months before this even came out, but I'm so glad I live in Japan sometimes, guys. Seriously. But I just thought he would be a little bit more nerdy and geeky. I was looking forward to that, especially because he is an all-star Superman, the comics, right? But still, not terrible. I liked it. It was good enough. And he was a little bit geeky, especially when he was messing around with Jimmy Olsen and when Jimmy was congratulating him for whatever new story he wrote. That was good. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You probably know where I'm about to go with this. I am not a fan of what they did with Jor-El and Lara. I won't go deeply into it because, once again, I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. There's going to be a mildly spoilerish review, okay? But certain things I'm not going to say. All I can say is, wow, that hit me. Huh? And the first thing I thought, of course, as many of you did too, it was doctored, right? But James Gunn in his interviews recently is saying that no, it's not doctored, you know, and he actually seems to be getting a little miffed about it. Look, I'm okay with Krypton being a certain way. They're an alien culture and all of that. But Jor-El is supposed to stand, especially speaking from a Christian point of view. There's some heavy messianic undertones and overtones in all of that since the Silver Age Superman, and especially in the Chris Reeve film. I always loved and respected that, right? For this reason, I send them you, my only son, right? So this was just like, Now, some ways to get around this, okay? As a language teacher, as a Bible researcher, as an amateur scholar of old civilization, still ongoing, still growing, learning myself, there's such a thing as hyperbole, right? And the way that things are translated, and not even translated, but just the way that people spoke in ancient times and in ancient worlds that just don't necessarily translate to English well. There are words in Japanese that I cannot fully translate into English without using a paragraph, maybe, right? Mono no aware, the sad, delicate, heart-aching sadness, I said that first, of the beauty of things that don't last and are in a state of transient beauty. They're leaving and they won't come back, right? How do you explain that, right? You can only explain that the way I did, or someone better, I'm sure, but it's gonna take more than one word, right? But mono no aware is one word in Japanese. But there's also hyperbole, right? As I said before, when we say that the Bears murdered the Packers, right? Well, look, if somebody hears that, if an alien species or a civilization somehow gets a, super powered Wi-Fi connection to the Super Bowl, they hear something like that and they're going to be like, whoa, the Bears murdered the Packers, right? And maybe they would get it that they're teams, but still murdered? What? And that goes back to even when it comes to Old Testament, ancient Old Testament, when you read the Bible and things that have to do with the genocide and holy wars in the Old Testament. I won't go into that now. Look in my other videos if you want. But they could always go with so many directions about how that recording was interpreted. If Jor-El and his wife really felt that way themselves, or was that something you would say in their civilization that meant to prosper, right? Right? Looking for the land of overflowing with milk and honey. Canaan was not necessarily overflowing with milk and honey. That would be like a an anime, you know, apocalypse, just honey pouring down from the sky. Anyway, I digress. So guys, I am coming up with a new rating system, still working the kinks out. I don't know, but for Superman, I would give it 4 popcorns out of 5. So guys, if you liked my review and you liked this video, you can give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, if you didn't agree with what I was saying, if you don't like my haircut or this Don Da Don t-shirt, you can give me a thumbs down. I always do better. God bless you wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you next time on the sofa.